This is Mari Robeson of Love Lulu Creative, a podcast that supports and celebrates artists and creative entrepreneurs while giving back to the community in a unique and meaningful way. This is episode number 41, and I'm thrilled to have on today's show Neal Breton. He is a Central Coast artist, and I love his artwork. It's colorful, it's joyful. He does exterior poolscapes and landscapes. He does hard edge lined paintings, which are just fabulous and amazing. We talk about all of this on the show. We also talk about his experience in working with galleries. And on top of that, come to find out, Neal also happens to be the president of the board for the San Luis Obispo County Arts Council. I'm beyond thrilled to know this because I know he's going to do really great things for our community of artists that we have here on the Central Coast. So much talent here, and it's really great to see his vibrant energy. The head of the board there, just really trying to help and support other artists, which is what I'm trying to do here with the podcast. So we're very like-minded, and it was really a wonderful treat to get to chat with him and learn more about what he does with his art. So I just know you guys are really going to like this episode. I'm excited about it. And if you are liking these episodes, if you would please subscribe to the channel, it really does help me out, and it helps out this whole mission to support the arts. That's what this is. We're all here to help one another. So please hit the subscribe and share it with all your creative friends. There are tons of information here from all of these different types of artists and all the different ways that you can make a living as a creative entrepreneur. Really good stuff. So hit that subscribe button and stay tuned for a really fun episode with the incredibly talented Neal Breton. Hi, Neal. I am beyond excited to have you on the show today. So thank you so much for taking time out of your quarantine schedule to visit with me and talk about art.
Well, the pleasure is all mine.
Yay. I'm really glad that I've finally met you. I don't know where I've been that I haven't known about you, because you're also another local Central Coast artist here. And I don't know why I've never seen your artwork before, because as soon as I saw it, I was just madly in love with it. So
same here. I really love your work. I think the internet is a very odd, vast place, and it even makes towns like this that feel like they're small very huge. But I'm glad that we found each other.
Me too. And I want to talk to you about how we found each other, but a little bit later in the show, or how I found you, because it has to do with the SLO Arts Council. So I want to talk to you about that a little bit later. First, I want to just kind of go backtrack on your story. And so tell me, you live in Los Osos now, correct?
Yeah, currently, the last couple of years I've lived in Los Osos, but I'm a about 10-year resident of the Central Coast. I came from the outskirts of Los Angeles to have a bit of a better life here. I felt like Los Angeles was grinding me down, so I moved up here and made a change. And it's been an interesting ride.
Right. You kind of give up one thing for the other.
Yeah,
a little bit.
I was spending so much time in my car commuting that I felt like I lost a lot of myself. So when I moved here and there were more trees than people, I felt like I really connected with this place. I'm originally from New Hampshire, where there are definitely more trees than people there. So I felt that connection that I had with New Hampshire kind of bubble up to the top, and I really felt like I needed to be here. Not really even knowing very much about it, and not knowing anybody. I knew one person here, and I moved up here.
Did you just put a finger on the map and say, I think I'm going to go up there?
I just kind of vacationed up here. I was vacationing, like when I was living in LA, I would vacation to Santa Barbara, but then Santa Barbara started to become like a little bit more like LA.
Yeah.
So then I was like, okay, I need to escape that bubble. So then I moved. So then we went, and I took a vacation. I think we landed in Cambria,
beautiful,
which is a really beautiful place. Not much to do necessarily, but it's really beautiful, I think. So I think that's where I kind of fell in love, and it kind of turned the corner for me to like want to figure out a way to move up here.
And Los Osos is even more of a little, maybe we shouldn't even share the secret
Yeah,
of it. But I mean, it's a pristine, beautiful
it
place to live. That is,
it is. And there's a
yeah,
lot of artists here. I
I
feel like
know.
I know I don't want to speak out of turn, but I feel like in San Francisco, like in the 60s and 70s, that there were like these art colonies, and I I feel like there's a definite distinction, or there's a definite like connection between the way San Francisco was back in those days and what Los Osos is doing right now. If you look on the map, like just say the Open Studio Tour, for instance, like last year had like 50 artists here. That's an amazing amount of people for the fact of the matter that there's like only 13,000 people in Los Osos itself.
Yeah.
That's a lot of artists.
Yeah, it's great. I am so blessed that I started this podcast because even though I've interviewed people from all over, I mean, all over the world, actually, at this point, right
Yeah.
in my backyard, I've gotten to meet so many amazing creatives. And I mean, you're just another fabulous example of that. It just, there's so much talent here on the Central Coast. We're going to talk about that. I don't want to get
Good.
ahead of myself, but I
Yeah, I
really
can't wait.
love to see how we can bring that even more together. So, okay. So did you always want to be an artist, or what was, when was the moment in your life when you said, I think this is going to be my gig? Did you study art? Did you go to school for art?
Yeah, I was as a kid I wanted to be a fireman. Like my dad was a fireman, his dad was a fireman, his dad was I came from a line of firemen on my dad's side.
Hmm.
Um, I didn't know what I wanted to be, but when I graduated high school, my mom threw me into college a month later. So there was no finding myself. There was no backpacking, no backpacking trips in Europe. She was like, all right, here, we're signing you up. I'm looking at your report card. You seem to have connected with art the best here of all the grades you got. Those were the best ones. So why don't you give that a try? So I went in as an illustrator, and this is the mid 90s. So like Photoshop is on 1 or 2, Photoshop 2.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So I kind of floundered a little bit in college until I found painting, and I felt like I found my people, my tribe.
Mm.
I had a really supportive, amazing teacher who actually retired up here. He's living in Santa Maria. If he's still alive, I think he is. He's an amazing painter, and I really connected with him, and I connected with the curriculum, and then unfortunately he retired, so I kind of drifted out of that. So I have a limited amount of paper education is what I like to call it. Like, I don't have a degree that says I know how to paint. I just kind of, through my own hard work, got to where I am right now just by trial and error. So,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Which I think is good and bad. If I had any advice to give people who are interested in this medium, it's a very difficult road, but it's also, I think, very important for those people to stick to it and get that piece of paper that says you know how to paint.
I mean, yes and no. I think that college art schools are fantastic because they teach you a lot of the basic principles. So it kind of sets you ahead, gives you
Yeah,
a little running start on that. But the work is the work. Like you just got to do the work whether you have the degree or not. And
I
so,
agree.
I mean, yes and no. There's many paths to it. So I think if you
I
want something more technical, like animation or graphics, and college is for sure going to really help you because there's so technical, the computer
I
skills.
I think college in a lot of ways is some way, so in some ways, a feudal system. Like if you stick around, if you can stick it out, then opportunities will come about. I often think that the teachers who are teaching painting, they want their students to thrive because
Mm-hmm,
it makes not only the student look good, but it makes the teacher look good. Like,
mm-hmm,
oh, this teacher begat all of these other painters who are really amazing, so
mm-hmm,
this person has a legacy in some ways.
mm-hmm.
And in that, like, I think that there's also opportunity within the school system that will like could push you ahead to getting shows at galleries and things like that, instead of just being a cold call, that nobody knows who you are, that kind of thing.
That's really, really
In
well
some
said.
ways. Yeah, I think that there's definitely the advantage. That's the advantage. But you're right. In the end, you still have to put paint to surface and really get it done and have your own work ethic.
Absolutely. I mean, I think those are the artists that get up and they work on the craft every day. They're the ones that are really, you're seeing out there being successful, because they're really, and it's not just an artist, it's basketball players, it's anybody who's like really focused on their craft every day, dip the toe in the water.
Yeah.
So I did see a rather impressive amount of shows that you have done. So let's talk about that. So you did go to college for a little while, you said, but then you did you go right into doing gallery shows afterwards?
Yeah. No, I mean, I think like a lot of people starting out, like I kind of hit the ground running and tried to get as many shows as I could. So like cafes, I applied and failed at getting shows at galleries for a long time. So I did work, but I just kept working, and I kept looking for venues, and I kept going to shows myself, like shows at big galleries that I liked. So I met people, and eventually, like I got a look from a couple of different places down in LA that were kind of nice. I got a Bergamot Station show in like a real like like white wall kind of gallery. But a lot of it was just doing shows at cafes and doing things like that,
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, that's where people go.
Yeah.
And that's where people see your work. Yeah.
Part of the reason why I didn't return to school necessarily after my teacher retired was the fact that like I had a coffee house show and I sold 2 or 3 pieces. So I just said to myself, well, okay, well, if this is the way the thing goes, then maybe I don't need a piece of paper to tell me that I can paint. I'm just gonna do the work and put it up wherever I can and try to sell it. And so I kind of made a career out of that path.
So in doing that, like what would be your advice for someone who wants to show at, let's say they do want to approach the White Wall Gallery? How would you go about doing something like that?
I think when I give advice to people who ask me, like some people are befuddled why, like, how did you get that show? Well, I have a body of work that's consistent. I've spent time getting better at craftsmanship. I've spent time thinking about the reason why I'm painting what I'm painting or what it means to me, and being able to be you have to wear a lot of hats kind of. So you have to be a good writer, and you have to be personable, and you have to be able to also do that work in order to get into those galleries. I think it's sometimes the first approach to those galleries is knowing you're probably going to get rejected, but putting together a good package to show them, like, I have these 15 paintings, they all kind of are the same thematically, and this is why I painted those things. And even if they say no, sometimes it's good that they say no, because maybe you can also solicit advice from them, like, why did you say no? And it could be, well, we're full for the next 3 years because we're a popular gallery, or your work doesn't work with the other work that we have in the gallery, or such and so on and so forth. So I would say just go for it and learn from the mistake. The worst thing they can do, obviously, is say no to you. So you can just learn from that. And I think I've been surprised a few times, even in my career. I've been painting for about 25 years. I still get surprised and excited when a gallery, like somewhere that I've never been before, like Minnesota, like said, yeah, sure, we'll take some of your pieces. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, I saw that. You have them kind of all over the place, all over the country. That's very exciting. I think because the subject of your work is so California, I could see how that would resonate with a lot of people.
Yeah. it also
That's how he
doesn't
did
though.
with me. Oh, well, yeah. I mean,
Yeah,
that's art, right?
yeah. I talked to a gallery in Denver who was like, "We really like your work, but I don't get it. I don't know if this place will get it." I think that's what they said.
That's so
They like,
interesting because you're like, so there's been a few other guys out there like kind of paint something similar, pretty famous. That's weird that they
yeah.
wouldn't understand that. That's
I,
I'm
I
not saying that your work is not totally uniquely yours, but um, you know,
no, yeah, for
you
sure. I
had
think
the
I'm
hockey
selling
comparison and all of those,
right, of course. Yeah,
right? Yeah.
yeah.
But that's weird. It's okay though. Everybody's got, that's what's so great about art is everyone's can have their opinion about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So I really love the pool artwork, and I know I would suspect, and I'm totally guessing, and I'm maybe I shouldn't say this, but I would suspect that a lot of people go, "Oh, that looks kind of Palm Springs," but for
Hmm.
me, the pools, like I grew up with a pool, and I was pretty urban, and that's what
Oh
I
yeah.
saw when I was looking at it. I'm like, oh, that reminds me of my childhood. So I really love your whole pool series. I think it's really
Thank you.
prescient.
I to admit, so I have to admit, I have been to Palm Springs once. I've been to Palm Springs once in December of all times, where it was deserted. Um, I dig the vibe. I think when like as I started living here, I started meeting more architects. Strangely enough,
Mhm.
but I mean, I guess Cal Poly,
Right, it's a big
there's a big
architecture
section that
school.
does. Yeah, they do
Yeah,
architecture, they do
yeah.
engineering.
I married
You
one.
know, oh, yeah, oh, there you go. Yeah, so I started feeling the influence of learning about different kinds of architecture, and modern architecture really resonated with me.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like I wanted to write these love letters to um, to California because being in New Hampshire, nobody had a below ground pool. You basically went to the lake, kind of, if you were going to swim, which is gross. So gross.
Yeah, yeah.
But I mean, it is. So all of these are like uniquely. I'm just so constantly amazed by even just walking in Los Osos, just flora and fauna that is just abundant around here. That's just growing naturally. It's no big deal, but it's just growing up in a place like Glendale where I grew up, where it was all blacktop basically and prefab buildings and things like that. Like I wasn't going to get that inspiration from there until I moved away and kind of started to appreciate different facets of things. And that's kind of where a lot of where the pools came from. It also gives me the opportunity to like paint really big, beautiful fields of color that was like one of the big things for me about this series too, was like the ability to make myself happy with it.
Oh, I love that so much. That's why I paint what I paint. And that's why I
Yeah.
think it resonated with me was one, the love of architecture, being in interior design for so long. I really enjoy that about your paintings very much so. And two, your love of color, which of course I try to paint monochromatic sometimes. It just will never happen. It's just never going to come out of me that way.
Yeah, well,
So,
that's good because in your own right, your paintings are epic. I think they're so
oh,
amazing.
thank
So I'm
you.
glad you do what you do, and how you do it, I think, is fantastic.
Well, it's funny that you say it makes you happy because this past couple of years, I personally have gone through a lot of not just a lot of loss, and I have always used my art as kind of a go-to to kind of raise my vibration, lift my spirits, like feel good, and it's my joyful, happy place to go to, and I find that color and surrounding myself, it's the first time I've been painting myself just for that reason. And I don't even know if people understand these paintings, but it doesn't even matter because it's almost somewhat like a therapy to create them. So I want to
I
ask
can
you the same
definitely.
question about you because you were saying, you should have your why you paint what you do. So what is your why behind why you paint these joyful, colorful poolscapes?
I guess if I had to think about if I had to give one reason, it's to have these little vacation vignettes, like little windows into paradise, sort of, where you're by. A lot of times, the ones that I paint that are just poolscapes with nobody in them are usually my favorite ones. The most recent pod of paintings that I've been doing, I don't know what else to call them, are all like really kind of lush plants and landscape, and then the pool is in there too. And they're not as architectural, and that's because my growing need and fascination with things that are natural and are found in the natural world. I think that when I first did some of these pool paintings, it was just about me kind of taking a vacation from a previous series that I was doing, and I just wanted something nice to look at. I just wanted to I think I wanted to be alone before it was cool to be alone. I think as we sit in quarantine times, like I think my paintings are perfect for quarantine because it's just, I want you to just be the only person in that. A lot of them, some of them I've done have figures in them, and I'm trying to also explore those ideas. But some of my favorite ideas are really the ones where it's just kind of like you're looking at an empty space and it's just you there, and maybe it's voyeuristic, but not really. Like I'm trying to put the person into that paradise mindset.
My daughter just interviewed me about that exact same thing, and I told her that's the reason why I don't put people in my room interiors, because I want that person to experience. That's their experience in that room. Like, what are they feeling in that room when they're looking at it? So same concept. You're in that poolscape, and that's your escape, your moment of reprieve, to be gazing at this gorgeous pool and all this floral and fauna around you. I love it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you.
I feel the kindred spirit.
I agree. I think your paintings and my paintings could be in a room together, and I think
they should have a show together.
Yeah.
Mine's the inside of the house, and you're on the outside of the house.
Yeah, perfect.
I love it. Okay, well, we'll have to do that.
Yeah, I'm in.
Oh, that's so fun. I really, really, your paintings are just great. So I noticed also too that you kind of dabbled a little bit, and you call it hardline. It reminds me of opt art, but it's not necessarily. But is that something also is that something you're kind of simultaneous in? Was that an older body of work, or is that
no? Surprisingly,
they kind of go side by side.
Yeah, they kind of do. Some of my earlier works within the pool series, I would put a lot of figures in, and then sometimes the figures were next to like sculptures, and I made these sculptures that kind of looked like the hardline paintings.
Okay.
So they've always kind of, anytime I've shown like an interior, most of the time I show a painting that looks like a hardline painting in my thing. So I decided, for two reasons, I decided to try to explore hardline as just a series of paintings. One of the reasons was because I had always kind of done them inside paintings, so I wanted to see what it would be like to have like a real, quote unquote, real life set of paintings like this. And the other thing was, somebody approached me in a professional capacity and said, these pool paintings you're doing, they're very close to being like almost abstract in some ways, and maybe you should try doing abstracts, because I think I can sell abstract work to galleries and other people. And so it was just an opportunity. I felt like it wasn't really selling out. It was kind of just like trying to actually make a go of something like this, and trying something on somebody else's suggestion. It's hard when you're an artist to like listen to advice, I think, sometimes. But I listened to this advice just to try something different, to see if galleries were more interested or had any interest in a series of works like that. And they also, like, for me, the Hardline series kind of also explores, like I said, I love flat planes of color. And so that kind of like that really speaks to me too. Like being able to have a painting that doesn't have a subject matter or any kind of meaning. It's just kind of painting about paint in a way. And that's what those kind of paintings are about in a lot of ways.
And exploring color combinations and how
Yes.
colors work together. And I did an episode with Gina Julian, who does really beautiful opt art where the lines, and I learned quite a bit about that from her, about the way the different hues of colors play off of each other and recede and come forward. And it's fun. It's really lovely. I love what you're doing. And I do think they definitely look like they're coming from the same artist and they have the same energy around them. And so it's fun to give people different options of what to buy. It is hard to take advice from other people, but if it sounds fun to you, well, why not? Right?
Yeah. I mean, if if somebody comes up to you and says, I can make you a star, maybe listen to it. I'm like, well, I would like money. That would be nice. That sounds cool.
It kind of is helpful to
buy.
It's better than
better than working a day job, which is something I've had to do every single time.
Yeah. So do you work another job also as well?
I do. I work for an architecture firm, funny enough. So I work, I do everything but architecture. So I do administrative work and I do some marketing for them and things like that. So
that's fun. And we still around real creative industry.
Yeah, I think it satisfies my need to be organized. I really enjoy that part, like cleaning and organizing. So I think it kind of it suits that need to be a normal person. Because I don't think being a creative is a normal thing.
I know it is a weird life.
It's a really weird job.
I mean, it's strange because you spend a lot of time in the creation part, and then you go into the selling part, but you have to have that quiet time of just creating pieces and things. And so it feels like you're not really working, because it's not like you're going and getting a paycheck every week. It's like you have to create this body of work before you can ever see anything kind of lucratively come out of it.
Yeah, exactly.
I do, funny enough, work full-time as an artist, but I have my feet in many levels of it, textile design, wallpaper design, different areas where, but it is all art, whether it's surface design or it's a painting, it's still all art.
That's great. That's what I would probably give advice to people who are trying to be artists as well, is to pick a practical application, whether it's being a graphic designer, or maybe even in the field of design or architecture in that way, or it's a tattoo artist. At least find something that is a practical thing that you can go to another city and go, okay, well, I do this for a living,
right?
And it still fulfills you. It fulfills your soul still in some way. And you're also, because you're doing art, but you're also getting paid a steady paycheck, hopefully.
Yeah, that came from my dad. My dad was like real practical. He was just like, I was like, I want to go to art school. I want to be an actress. And he was like, no, you have to get a technical degree. And I'm like, well, I'm going to get a technical degree in art then. And I'm grateful that I did, because it has a lot of work. The work part you can still do and then pursue, but it's taken me a long time to come back to just painting, just to paint. It's been a long road to get back to that, but bills have to be paid, especially when you've got kids in college.
Right. So does it feel like a treat to you now when you get to like actually do the things you quote unquote want to do, even though you are in the creative fields?
Beyond that, yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's such, I feel so fortunate and so blessed to be able to do that. And I look forward to it every day when I can get that time and get in my studio and be able to paint. But there's a lot of other things that you have to do prior to that. But it's like the cherry on top of the day, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
You feel the same way? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, having many hats, and then also being a dad. If you get that sweet studio time, it's definitely a blessing.
Especially with a 2-year-old little boy.
Yeah, Good gravy. Yeah.
You just got to give him some finger paint and a bunch of like butcher paper and say, go at it.
Yeah, I wish that would be a thing, but I know that he would probably end up either eating the paint or putting it somewhere it's not supposed to be. So,
yeah, that's true.
yeah,
Oh, that's fun. They're precious.
yeah,
Okay, so let's get to this because I guess this is how I must have come across you. Was I felt so honored that I got a little shout out on the San Luis Obispo, the Art Council's Instagram.
yeah.
And then
The
I
online Art After Dark program that we do,
yes, and
the virtual Art After
I
Dark.
saw that, and I always like try to support the local, and then I liked it. I'm like, oh, what the heck? I'll submit something, and I had no idea that Lena was the
Oh
person on
yeah,
the other side, and I was like, oh, Lena, I know you.
yep,
So yeah, and so then I met you. So that's really, really great. And then I saw your work and I was like, oh my gosh, this guy's amazing. I need to feature him. His work is stunning. And then I found out that you are the president of the SLO Arts Council. And I'm
yeah. No big
so
deal.
excited about that. Well, I didn't know that until I started researching a little bit about you.
Yeah,
Stalking, researching, same thing. And
yeah,
then I found that and I was like, what the heck? He doesn't even say this like on his profile that he does this. And I'm so thrilled because my mission with this podcast is to just support the arts and to get as many artists on here telling their story and their journey. And I'm so grateful that you've come on to share, your path and your beautiful work. And I feel like we have kind of again a kindred connection in the way of wanting to support the arts and to do it here locally. And I just felt like I haven't seen that scene yet in our community when we have all of this talent here.
yeah.
And so
Well,
I'd love for you to talk a little bit about that and what your vision is
sure.
for it.
Like you, in some ways, I felt not supported by previous boards of the Arts Council. I was actually a pretty vocal opponent of the programs themselves, of the people who were running them. So much so that I had written an opinion in the New Times about how I thought that they needed to treat their artists better. And I
Hmm.
think maybe it started to come sort of from that. Um, I feel fortunate to have the success that I've had, even though it's not the most success that you could have as an artist. I feel like I've done shows, I've curated things, I've sold hundreds of paintings, and I feel very blessed and fortunate to have that. And with that energy, what I want to do with it is not make more money or, um, like try to place myself as some like awesome person. But what I want to do is give back to the community and to help
Yes.
people like get like when they ask me like how did you do this thing and I show them for free. Like I want to help the community legitimately. And I think that this was a great opportunity because in a lot of ways when I joined it was the council was in shambles in some ways. There was one member of the board, one member, and one person working as the project manager slash administrator. So when I came on, I had ideas about how we could make things better. And I was lucky that the person, Peggy Sonato, who was the president for a while, allowed me to come on and allowed me to start like talking to people and try to make the change that I think we need to do. And I think it's important. Most of the boards, I think, in the past have been people who are interested in community ethics or community outreach, but they're not artists. So they don't
Mm-hmm.
necessarily have their boots on the ground about like what's
Mm-hmm.
going on.
Mm-hmm.
So they don't understand that like artists in their artists of all ages really feel marginalized in some
Mm-hmm.
ways here. They feel somewhat taken advantage of in a lot of ways. And there is an art scene here. It's in the cafes, it's in the restaurants, it's in the shows that you probably wouldn't have heard about before. So when I joined the board, I wanted to make sure that I I quickly moved up the ranks, like from board member to vice president, and I started to take time away from my job, my day job at the architecture studio, and started working almost practically almost like another full-time job at the council, tightening things up and trying to make things work more efficiently and more forward to the artists. And that's artists of all kind. I'm trying to, like, we started a program with the library. We worked out a deal with the library. So now
Yes,
the
I
library
love
is a
that.
space. Yeah, it's a space where performing arts can actually happen there. So like we have comedy and poetry, and we had a band play. So like we want more integration of all the arts. That's one of the biggest platforms. And not only that, just in general, like a lot of reform for the current programs, which means we audit, we're auditing Art After Dark to make sure that the vendors, like the venues, are respecting the artists, and the ones that aren't respecting the artists don't get to be on this. Because it's a privilege to have somebody who worked very hard on their artwork hanging in your shop. And the
Not
least
only
thing that you
that,
can
and
do is
bringing their tribe to your shop.
exactly. So this is a two-way street. This isn't,
Right.
and I think that the mindset in this town oftentimes is, well, we're doing artists a favor because it's a hobby. And it's so, in some ways, very insulting and sad that they don't have and it comes down to like not being angry at them, but knowing they're just not educated in
Right.
the way of the world. This is a small town, and if you've lived here your whole life, you may not have been exposed to the importance of art, which tells the history of the world. And the
Defines
people that are
cultures.
doing art, yeah, it does. It's a deciding factor on whether or not, history is being told, or even just like culture is enlightening. It's a big important thing, to say the least. I could use a lot of 25-cent words, but I'm just going to say it's important. So like venues that sell clothes need to move their clothes out of the way so the damn artists can like have a spot to show their work. So it's a twofold sort of situation where we're trying to educate, and we're trying to empower artists, so artists make good decisions too, because they're also oftentimes making bad decisions. So we have to come at it from kind of both directions when it comes to events and things like that. And then there's all kinds of other things right now that we're struggling with, as far as the council goes in general, just because prior boards were not very good with money. Maybe they weren't very good business people, but they had a big heart, so there's a lot of things that need change within the council itself, and then also within the community. So we're really excited to be in this position. Unfortunately, we're not excited to be in the position that we're at, where we can't do shows, where we can't generate money. That's actually becoming, it's a serious problem for all art, for all nonprofits, that especially arts nonprofits. Arts are probably the first thing to go sometimes when you have things like this happen.
Isn't it interesting too, though? I've been getting this a lot from just my circle of friends, of how people are finally going, well, Maury, I guess what you do is kind of important, because I'm stuck in my house all day and I really don't like the way it looks, and I don't really feel that great. And I'm like, yeah, your environment is everything. It's how you go out into the world. And this is not something I came up with. I mean, it's been around with feng shui. It's been around for thousands of years. It's like, this is why, our living spaces are so important. And what do you...
Are you selling those people paintings, I hope?
And what about, every single interior design client I've ever had, and they listen to this, and they will know that I always tell them, when it comes to purchasing art, I look at them and I say, so which local artists are we going with? Because you need to meet the artists. I want you to know them. I want you to know the story behind the painting. I want them to write a letter and attach it to the back of the painting. So when this painting is passed down to your grandchild, they know who this artist was. And they all do it. They all do it. And they all support the local artists. They're like, oh, we didn't even know. I'm like, what do you mean you didn't even know? You know how many artists are here? It's like, why would you go down and buy a print at
World Market,
mass-produced place that was made in China somewhere, when you can support a local artist, probably, and you have the money to really enjoy this. And then it's so fun because then they learn about art and they feel connected to this person and their story. And it's just it's the greatest thing ever. But that
it really is
spread all the way out like that. Like, I love what you're saying about like educating the community and just explaining why art is important. And here's a perfect jumping off point, because if you're sitting in your house and you had no music to listen to and no art to look at and no books to read, it would really get pretty depressing. Pretty fast,
Yeah.
So
you can't live on Netflix alone.
You can't. But I've watched like so many art documentaries on Netflix. So
yeah, true story.
I do appreciate that very much as well. But I really, really like that. And and another thing, I'm going off on a tangent on this whole thing, but I used to have a little boutique, and I always tried to feature as many local artists, whether jewelry artists or whatever it was. And I would do it just for the same reason you're doing it, just to support the arts and to have something unique to show. And the benefit was they would bring all of their people would come and they would find out, oh, this person does this. It was just a win-win-win.
Yeah.
So in the art,
it really is.
I have not been involved in it because it's very slow centric and it feels a little intimidating. So, and I don't live in slow. So I have never, approached it. So it's really, I just think it's great to hear what you're doing. I really do.
You should. Your art is great and you are welcome. And anybody listening, if they're doing art, you're definitely welcome in San Luis Obispo to show it somewhere. And if that means that you have to like contact me or somebody like me, please do that.
Because I'm going to put I'll put this all in the show notes so that people can do that. And I really think it's so wonderful because the world needs more art and the world needs to know about all of these really great artists. And there's so many different types of artists here that you will find something that just makes your heart flutter, and you're going to want to have that in your house. And it's just a great thing.
Yeah, I agree.
Oh, this is so good. Okay. I could go on and on and on, but you've given so much good advice on so many things. I do want to ask you to go back to your younger self when you were in college with that wonderful professor that really inspired you.
Yeah.
Then you chose to go out on your own. What would be your advice that you would give that young Neal back in the day? From all this world of knowledge that you have now, what would you have said to yourself?
I would have told myself to slow down and read a book. Like read some books. I feel like I spent a lot of time making art, but maybe not really understanding why I was making what I was making and what it looked like and how it came from somewhere. And I had an inkling of idea, but geez, it would be nice if I just slowed down for a minute and read some books and really spent more time thinking about my art and what it meant to not only myself but other people. I think that would be my advice, is just absorb as much as you can. We're all here to just like learn until we die, I think. If you stop learning, then you have a problem. You're in trouble.
That seems to be, I've heard that said many ways from different people, but I really get it. Like, I really appreciate that you're saying it that way, to know your why you're creating what you are creating. Yeah. And it doesn't have to be like to save the planet or anything. It doesn't have to be this earth shattering thing. It can just be make somebody happy when they look at it. That's great.
Sometimes you just like ponies, and you're painting ponies, and that's why.
If that's your why, then own that.
Yeah, exactly. Own it.
This is just fantastic. Thank you so much, Neal. I just appreciate you so much. Thank you.
Oh, thank
Thank
you.
you for everything that you're doing and all the work that you're doing with the council. I know it's a lot of behind the scenes and a lot of time, and it's just so appreciated by all of the artists in the community. So thank you so
Thanks.
much.
Yeah, it's definitely it's a labor of love, but it's worth it.
It's
And
really wonderful.
if you can support the arts, and you probably should. Darn it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yay. Thank you so much for joining me today. If you like this podcast and you'd like to support it even more, you can join me over on patreon.com/Mari Robeson and become a patron of mine. If you're a patron of mine, you'll receive bonus episodes every month, only for patrons. You'll also receive 20% off all the merchandise in my online shop, marirobeson.bigcartel, and you will be receiving free printables every month that will be of my artwork, and they're some really fun things. You can follow along on Instagram and you can see what I'm creating just for my patrons. I would deeply appreciate it. It would help me keep the lights on, and it would help me pay all the fees that it takes to put together a podcast like this so that I can keep supporting all the artists, keep bringing you great information, keep paying it forward to the next generation of artists. It's just a wonderful thing, and I would really deeply appreciate your support.